Welcome back to English classes again today morning. The first hour will be English classes. I hope all of you are familiar with these new arrangements that are going on, right? So I will be meeting you in the first hour and also in the afternoon at 1:30 to 2:15. Okay, so I will be meeting you two times, morning first hour and afternoon after lunch immediately at 1:30 to 2:15. I will be meeting you. Right, so all of you are with me, I suppose, and all of you are following carefully. I assume that all of you are following very carefully. We have done one prose piece, right? We have done one prose piece, The Knowledge Society by APJ Abdul Kalam. We have done one poem, The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost. Now we are doing this lesson, the second lesson in your syllabus, the language of African literature. The language of African literature. Right, so the language of African literature by Ngugi wa Thiong'o. So in the previous class, I was discussing with you how the author tells about his formal education, and he is talking about the system of education in his country Kenya. And I told you that this African literature is mostly oral literature. Okay, they don't have much of written literature. They have oral literature where the literature is passed on from the generation to generation. The parents or elders tell the children and the children tell their children. So the story, the literature is passed on like that. It's not much of written literature. And in this lesson, the author is talking about the conflict between the regional language and the medium of instruction, English, right? And this author is talking about how colonial powers, the Western countries, are trying to transform Kenyan culture, or rather African culture as a whole, right? The author is very sad, and the author is trying to make people realize the beauty of African culture, right? So it's a kind of movement. The author is spearheading a kind of movement where he wants to see African culture and African literature having its own position, having its great position. Right, so it's this story was written during the independence, African fight for independence. African countries were fighting for independence, and they were coming out, emerging from the control of the colonial powers, and there was a great movement in almost all the countries of Africa at that time, a great nationalist movement. And in that great nationalist movement, each country of Africa, every citizen of Africa were trying to reclaim or trying to bring back their culture, their way of doing things, their traditions, or giving importance to their language, right? So here, last class, I was discussing how the author joined a school, or was enrolled in a school which was giving more primary importance to English. And we saw in that school system where you had to speak in English, right? And if you spoke in mother tongue, there were different modes of corporal punishment, right? They would write the student who spoke in English was supposed to carry a metal plate around his neck with the inscriptions, I am stupid, I am a donkey. Or a button was given to the student who spoke in English as a punishment, and it was passed on to those who spoke in English throughout the day, and at the end of the day the teacher would find out who had the button. So it was a very pathetic situation. The author is very pathetic. He is very sad at how people are treating Gikuyu, the native language. He says people are not giving importance to African language. People are giving importance to English language. That's what he was talking about, and we were discussing previously about that class. And in this process, in the school system, the children were turning traitors against each other. They were cheating each other because they were like showing out the person who had the button. It was kind of being a traitor. A traitor is a person who cheats your own countrymen or fellow men, right? So this system was not good, and the author was not happy. The author was always trying to tell the people the importance of mother tongue. Of course, mother tongue is important, and at the same time English is important too, right? English is also important. We need to learn English for our future prospects, right? Along with the mother tongue. No doubt we should also follow our mother tongue. We should give importance to our mother tongue, whether it's whatever language it may be, Telugu or Malayalam or Tamil or Marathi or whatever it is. We need to give importance to our mother tongue, and at the same time I want to remind all of you that English is a language which is very much needed in today's world, right? And English is a language which has become very important in our lives, for our jobs, for our survival, for many other things. So I'm trying to remind you that don't neglect your mother tongue, but along with your mother tongue, try to also inculcate the habit of speaking in English. That is also one important aspect. I would like to advise you as an English teacher. So I hope all of you develop an interest towards English, and I hope all of you are drawn towards this language and learn this language. Right. So that is what we were discussing last class. We shall continue with this lesson. Right. So we are looking at the lesson, the language of African literature by Ngugi wa Thiong'o. He is a Kenyan writer, and he wrote this lesson as a kind of rebellion against the European powers, their control and their ruling, and also against the language system, Right. The attitude to English was the exact opposite. Any achievement in spoken or written English was highly rewarded. So it was a craze in Kenyan school system at that time, when the author was a young boy in school many years ago. This lesson was written many years ago. This is not a new lesson, or it's not something which is written recently. It's a very old piece of literature. So it's around 20 or 25 years back that this lesson was written. So at that time in Kenya, people were crazy about English. Everything they wanted to join their students, their children in English medium schools. A craze for English, and in that during the days of the author, right? If you wrote anything in English or if you spoke in English, you were highly rewarded. It's like if you knew English, you would get a government job immediately, or you would get a good seat in a college. Like English was the gateway to many things in life for this author, especially in the country of Kenya. And I think the same, once upon a time in India, there was a craze for English. And many people thought if my children or if we know English, we can have a high standard of living or a better standard of living. So, the author says in this paragraph that English was highly rewarded in Kenya at the time, the Kenyan society. Prizes, prestige, applause, the ticket to higher realms. Higher realms means REALMS. Greater heights, good position, high position, right? Greater heights, good position. So English would take you to high position in life. It was the thinking of the Kenyan people, the people of Kenya, the country of the author, Ngugi wa Thiong'o, right? So Ngugi wa Thiong'o is from Kenya, right? It's a country in Africa, East Africa, right? So the ticket to higher realm. So you spoke in English, you are well versed in English, you are good in English, you would get prizes, right? Prestige. You would be a popular person. People would respect you because you knew English. English became the measure of intelligence and ability in the arts, the sciences, and all the other branches of learning, right? So your measure of intelligence or your knowledge of things was measured by how much you know of English, how much amount of English you have learnt. Whether you are using English in your day-to-day life, whether you speak in English. Do you understand? So, it was a kind of success in all the streams of education, the arts and the sciences, and all other branches. So, even in the education system, English was deeply rooted. Okay? Teaching in English, learning in English was deeply rooted. Everything was based on whether you know English, how much amount of English you know. English became the main determinant of a child's progress up the ladder of formal education. Right? So, English became the main basis, the main foundation for the progress of your child in Kenya. The author says in Kenya, if a child wants to climb up the ladder of success or have a strong foundation, or for everything the basis was English. If you knew English, it was like you had a good life, you have a good career, you have a good job, you have a good lifestyle. As you know, the colonial system of education, in addition to its apartheid racial demarcation, had the structure of a pyramid, right? So the author now talks about a pyramid, a structure of pyramid existing in Kenyan society, and education along with the apartheid racial demarcation, right? Racial segregation, right? Demarcation, segregation. Racial demarcation, right? Segregation, demarcation, okay? Segregation. It's racial demarcation, racial racism, yeah? So, in Kenya, right, the colonial system of education, right, and in addition to racial apartheid, no, you had this in almost all the countries of Africa, especially South Africa. It was a very cruel system of apartheid where the white people, they were the minority. The white people were the minority and the Africans were the majority. But in South Africa, for many, many years, the white man, because of his supremacy, because of his greatness, controlled the Africans, right? Controlled the Africans and made them slaves in their own country, in their own society. So here, the author is talking about the system of education, racial demarcation. It had the structure of a pyramid, a strong pyramid. And how was the pyramid? a broad primary base, okay. The base of the pyramid consisted of primary education, okay. A narrow secondary middle, the middle section of the pyramid was a narrow secondary section, and even narrower university apex, and even narrower university apex, even narrower university apex, okay. So the education system in Africa, right, so you have, okay, university, okay. You had the university system, you had the university system, right. You had the university system, right. I will okay, yeah, I will draw it. Just listen again. I want to use different colors. Right. So this, as you went top of the pyramid, as you went on top of the pyramid, right? Only a few people, right? Only few people could only few people could have access to university education, right? Primary education, it was a big base, and secondary education was okay. But when you went on top of the pyramid, university education, only few people could have university education. It was only for the elite, the top class of society, okay? Only the top class of society, they could have university education. And not only that, English, right? So if you knew English, if you excelled in English, if you could speak English very well, and if you won many competitions, elocution and other competitions in English where you won prizes, immediately you would have access to university education. You would have access to university education. So primary education was, so as you go up the pyramid, the access to education is narrowing down because of English, So it was a very difficult kind of situation for any child in Africa to have education, right? The prospects of a bright education would get little bit difficult as you climb up the pyramid. Okay, so he says selections from primary into secondary were through an examination in my time called Kenya African Preliminary Examination. Like we have 10th class SSC, then SSLC, right? Okay, secondary school leaving certificate, or SSC, state school certificate, right? So you have that system in our country. So in Kenya, right, from primary to secondary, you had to pass an examination called Kenya African Preliminary Examination, in which one had to pass 6 subjects ranging from maths to nature study and Kiswahili. Kiswahili is the local language, so you had to pass these languages along with maths and nature study. And all the papers were written in English. All the papers were written in English. So just see how crazy or how much kind of importance in Kenya they gave for English once upon a time when the author was a young boy. Okay, nobody could pass the exam who failed the English language paper. So if you failed in English, you could not pass the exam. You had to pass in all the papers. You had to pass in all the papers, no matter how brilliantly he had done in other subjects. So in Kenya, at that time, okay, if you were attempting the Kenya African Preliminary Examination, you have to pass in all the subjects, right? And suppose you failed in English, that means you failed in the entire examination. You failed in the entire examination. I remember one boy in my class of 1954 who had distinctions in all subjects except English, which he had failed. So the author is telling us about a boy who was his classmate. This boy, his classmate, was a very brilliant student, and he had distinction in all subjects except English, which he failed. He was made to fail the entire exam. So automatically this boy was considered failing in all the exams, the whole Kenya African Preliminary Examination, because he failed in English. Even though he had distinction in other subjects, he failed in English, so he was considered not passing the exam. He went on to become a turn boy in a bus company. So the author is talking about the situation of this boy where he could not get a good job. He had an ordinary job in a bus company because of English. Because of English. He failed in English. The boy failed in English. I, who had only passes but a credit in English, got a place at the Alliance High School, one of the most elitist institutions for Africans in colonial Africa. So the author, right, who passed in all the subjects but just got a credit in English, he went to school. He went on to secondary school. Right, from primary, the author went to secondary school and he joined in a very good school, elite. Elite means a top class, high level school, okay, high level institution for Africans in colonial Africa. So the author was making good progress in his education. Yeah, the author was making good progress in his education because he knew the language English and he was having interest in English. Right. The requirement for a place at the university, Makerere University College, were broadly the same. So each university or college, they have their own requirements. If you want to join that college, or if you want to join a particular course, there are certain requirements which you must fulfill. Nobody could go on to wear the undergraduate red gown no matter how brilliantly they had performed in all the other subjects, unless they had a credit, not even a simple pass in English. So, unless you had a credit in English, you were not considered passing the examination. You must have a credit. A simple pass in English is not suitable for passing the Kenya examination, board examination. So, English was very important. The author is talking about how important was English at that time in Kenyan education system, and he is talking about how people had a craze for English, how people had a craze for English. Thus, the most coveted place in the pyramid and in the system was only available to the holder of an English language credit card. So, the cherished position, the coveted place in universities. If you want to enter into university, if you want to go into the university, right? In the university, only those people who was a holder of a good credit in English language and who had a good scorecard in English was able to climb the top of the pyramid, and they could reach the apex of the pyramid. They could reach the apex of the pyramid because you should know English. English was the official vehicle and magic formula to colonial elitedom. English was the official vehicle and the magic formula to colonial elitedom. So, in Kenyan society at that time, when the author was a young student, English was the official vehicle of the country. Wherever you go, they spoke in English. Once upon a time, even in India, like English was widely spoken, but later on, after independence, they brought into rule that Hindi was the official language of communication, and English is now like a kind of second language or business language in our country. So, in Kenya, English was the official vehicle and the magic formula to colonial elitedom. So, you want to be a good member of the society, or you want to be a high standing member of the society, you want to be equal with the colonial powers in Kenya, the author says you should know English. You should know English. Literary education was now determined by the dominant language, while also reinforcing the dominance, right? So, literary education was also very important at that time in the Kenyan society. Orature, what is orature? Orature is oral literature, right? Orature means oral literature. Orature. Okay, orature means oral literature. Okay, orature means oral literature, right? Oral literature, right? Oral literature. Orature means, okay. Right, oral literature. So orature was oral literature. Right. So orature in Kenyan languages stopped. Right. So literature in Kenyan native tongue stopped. Everything was done in English. Everything was done in English. In primary school, I now read simplified Dickens and Stevenson alongside Rider Haggard, Jim Hawkins, Oliver Twist, Tom Broad, Not Hare, Leopard, and Lion were now my daily companions in the world of imagination. So the author says that he mostly read English authors in school or in college, right? He was familiar with the English writers, not Kenyan writers or Kenyan storybooks or Kenyan literature. In secondary school, Scott G.B. Shaw vived with Rider Haggard, John Buchan, Alan Paton, Captain W. Johns at Makerere. I read English from Chaucer to T.S. Eliot with a touch of Graham Greene. So he's talking about the literature, English literature that he did when he was in school, secondary school, and then at the university level. So the author studied mostly English literature, not African literature or the literature of his country Kenya. So how crazy at the time the Kenyan society was regarding English literature. Thus language and literature were taking us further and further from ourselves to other selves, from our world to other worlds. So he says the language and literature of English, English language and literature was taking them further away from themselves. What do you mean by this? What do you understand? He says that because of their learning of English language and literature, the young people in Kenya were moving away from African culture and African tradition. The young people in Kenyan society were slowly forgetting the local languages, their native mother tongue. They were forgetting their mother tongue and they were concentrating on English. So, language and literature, the English language and literature was taking them away from themselves and from one world to other worlds. Right? So, once you learn English or once you learn another language, immediately you feel yourself displaced or in a disposition where you feel that you are in a new world or new environment. I started writing in Gikuyu language in 1977 after 17 years of involvement of Afro-European literature. In my case, Afro-English literature. So this writer, Ngugi wa Thiong'o, he says that he started writing in Gikuyu language in 1977. This is Ngugi wa Thiong'o is a very famous writer. He wrote many short stories. He wrote many novels, and he contributed a lot to English literature in the form of African literature. But we see here that he was writing mostly in English, not in his mother tongue. So only in 1977, after many years, after he came out from the university, he started writing stories or articles in Gikuyu, the native language of the Kenya people. Gikuyu, the native language of the Kenya people. Of course, there are many tribes in Kenya and different languages, but Gikuyu is the prominent language spoken in Kenya. It was then that I collaborated with Ngugi wa Miril in drafting of the play script Nagahika Nadinda. The English translation was I will marry when I want. So, the author, along with another Kenya writer, Ngugi wa Miril, both of them, they scripted a playwright, a play. They scripted a play. They they wrote a play in Gikuyu language, and the title of the play is Naga Hika Nadinda. That means in English, I will marry when I want. So this writer Ngugi wa Thiong'o writes both in English and in Gikuyu language. He writes both in English and Gikuyu language. But he started writing in Gikuyu language very slowly later on in life. I have since published a novel in Gikuyu, okay, Kaitani Jugira. Okay, so it's Kenya language. It's what is it? Gikuyu language. For me also it's a little bit difficult to pronounce, but okay. So Kaitani, okay, it's Kaitani Mutarabaini. Mutarabaini means devil on the cross. It is in English, it's known as devil on the cross. And he also completed a musical drama. The title of the musical drama is Maitu Jugira. English translation, Mother Sing for Me. So he wrote many books in Gikuyu literature. He wrote a musical drama, then he published a novel, and then he wrote a play script. He published a play script, right? So many books for children. He wrote 3 books for children in Gikuyu language. He wrote 3 books for children in Gikuyu language. It's Gikuyu Najamba Nina Namabati I Matagu. It's Gikuyu language, right? Wherever I have gone, particularly in Europe, I have been confronted with the question, why are you now writing in Gikuyu? Why do you now write in an African language? So, the moment he started writing in African language, wherever he went in Europe, people started asking him, why is it that you are writing in your mother tongue? Why is it now that you are writing in Gikuyu language? Because previously, Ngugi wa Thiong'o wrote only in English. Yeah? Ngugi wa Thiong'o, at the beginning of his career, when he started his writing career, he wrote only in English. English drama, English short story, or a short poem. But later on, he started writing in Gikuyu. Gikuyu, the language of Kenyan people. The official language of the Kenyan people, the country of Kenya. So when he went to Africa, people in Europe, people would ask him, why are you now writing in Gikuyu? In some academic quarters, I have been confronted with the rebuke, why have you abandoned us? It was almost as if in choosing to write in Gikuyu, I was doing something abnormal. So people were surprised. English writers, English poets, they were asking Ngugi wa Thiong'o, why have you forgotten us? Why are you abandoning us? They meant that he started writing in Gikuyu. Why are you not writing in English? They asked like this. The European writers, the European poets, and the people of English literature. Okay, they asked Ngugi wa Thiong'o, why have you started writing in Gikuyu, your mother tongue? What makes you to write in Gikuyu? Why are you now writing in Gikuyu? You are not writing in English. So it was almost as if in choosing to write in Gikuyu, I was doing something abnormal. But Gikuyu is my mother tongue. The author says, but Gikuyu is my mother tongue. Right? I have to write in Gikuyu because it's my mother tongue. The very fact that what common sense dictates in the literary practice of other cultures is being questioned in an African writer is a measure of how far imperialism has distorted the view of African realities. The author is surprised. Why are people doing like this? Right? Why are people talking about me when I start writing in African language? Right? They think that I am trying to go against the colonial powers. The author says, people are now thinking of me as going against colonial powers. It has turned reality upside down. The abnormal is viewed as normal and the normal is viewed as abnormal. Okay, so the normal is, the author is from Kenya and he is a man from Kenyan society, and primarily he should know Gikuyu literature, and he should write in Gikuyu literature. But people are now looking at him as abnormal because he is not writing in English. And he is not giving importance to English. So the very moment the author started writing in native language, in Gikuyu, his mother tongue, people were looking at him as an abnormal. Africa actually enriches Europe. Now he is going to some other discussion. In this discussion, he says African culture is indirectly, enriching European culture. You go to Europe, you have a lot of African diaspora in European countries. People settled in Europe from Africa, right? You go to France, you go to Germany, you go to Italy, you go to Spain, you see a lot of Africans. They have been living there for many years. And even Africans are contributing greatly to the economy of Europe, the economic development of Europe. So, he says Africa actually enriches Europe, right? But Africa is made to believe that it needs Europe to rescue it from poverty. Right? But Africans think that they need the support of Europe to rescue them from poverty. Okay, so I will stop here for today. Thank you for listening. So this is the lesson. Please try to follow the language of African literature by Ngugi wa Thiong'o. Thank you. Tomorrow I will start again. I will continue.